The great thing about the internet and social media is that it gives everybody an opportunity to express themselves. And the terrible thing about social media and the internet is it gives everybody an opportunity to express themselves.
It's a real pleasure to have you here and to have your wealth of knowledge here.
Well, I don't hear it, I mean, my wife stopped saying that decades ago. But it's one of the nice things about coming to South by is that you feel like you're with kindred spirits.
One of the several reasons you're in town right now is that you were doing another episode of your wonderful podcast with Frank Oz. And
yes.
I was curious, what was it like to, have the voice of Yoda and Kermit and so many others?
Well, the thing is, it was wonderful. The short answer is it was wonderful. We interviewed him before, but he was, which is not to say it was routine in any way, but he doesn't do voices. He performs characters, and he makes a big distinction about that. So he doesn't do like a medley of his hits for you. He won't talk like Yoda. He won't talk like Fozzie or Miss Piggy, because he sees it as a total performance, as an actor, and as a Muppet performer in particular, where he's manipulating, the actual gestures and body English and whatever you want to call it. That's how he was schooled or trained by Jim Henson, and that's the Henson philosophy at work.
I was thinking about Frank's filmography, and, I grew up loving many of his movies in my childhood, so my view of this might be skewed, but it seemed like a lot of his comedies were initially, they received passable critical notices or sometimes ambivalent ones, and I feel like, several of them, like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, What About Bob?
Bowfinger.
Yeah, Bowfinger is a perfect example. I've really stood the test of time.
They have.
And critics talk more fondly about them now than they did then.
Well, perhaps because there were more comedies being made then, and so not quite an embarrassment of riches. There are never enough good comedies. I think we value what we don't have at hand. I used to say comedy was my favorite genre until they stopped making good ones. And, they haven't stopped. It hasn't come to a dead stop, but it's discouraging to me.
They're few and far between.
Yeah,
now.
they're few and far between. And so when I just revisited Bowfinger last week, it runs out of gas toward the end, but it's so funny, and Eddie Murphy is so great in it, and he gets to really sink his teeth into that character he plays. It's just, it's a treat. It's a joy.
As a film critic, do you think film criticism is an evolving thing? Like some people think a critic's opinion is set in stone and that's it. And do you think it's changing?
If it isn't changing, you aren't changing. You aren't growing as a person. My reviews and my writing have to grow with it. I mean, it's just a natural evolution, I think.
Yeah, I think of that Graham quote where he was saying journalism is the first draft of history. And do you I mean, when you're doing a film review, that's your first initial opinion after seeing it once. And that's an early draft in a way.
It is. Sometimes you can't take it back. But I've learned to trust my gut. I've learned to trust my gut instinct because that's what I do professionally.
Well, and you've been doing this for a moment. And speaking of first drafts, your book series for many people were the Holy Bible of film criticism. And people in our industry today grew up with these books. And we're now about, I want to say 10 years since we've moved on from that.
It's 9 years.
9 years since the...
but who's counting?
Yeah. Do you miss it?
I don't miss the doing of it. A lot of work. It was a lot of work, especially when we ultimately became an annual publication. And it was a big machine at work. A lot of people, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of expertise from the people I gathered to be my team. But when we were done and I had the finished book that even I could consult.
Yeah.
And I could feel reliable about consulting the spelling of an actor's name or the year a film came out. in France, not the year it got imported here to the States. Minutia like that, that always felt good.
Well, and now do you feel like you have more time to actually revisit movies you enjoyed than you did when you were trying to see everything for that?
Yes, exactly. Now I'm choosier about what I spend my time watching.
Well, you started that book in the 1960s. You were in high school. You were a teenager. And obviously, there are not a lot of publishers paying high schoolers to write any books right now. But do you feel like film criticism on TikTok or social media is a continuation of where you began?
No, I see it as a different thing entirely, because my goal, my aim was to become a professional. And the great thing about the internet and social media is that it gives everybody an opportunity to express themselves. And the terrible thing about social media and the internet is it gives everybody an opportunity to express themselves, even people you don't really want to know about, people you don't want to entrust with your review or your work of art, whatever it may be, a song, a short film, an essay, whatever it may be. When there were gatekeepers who said, yes, you are good enough to be published. Well, that was a bar. They set a bar, a standard. And today it's just a free-for-all. That's not to say that some people don't have really valuable opinions to share or great knowledge to share. But sifting through that is challenging.
Yeah, there's a cacophony of noise, and finding expertise can be difficult.
Yeah, cutting through that clutter is no small feat.
Speaking of expertise, I think it was last week the New York Times read a headline along the lines of "How bad can it get for Hollywood?" And I'm curious, how bad do you think it could get for Hollywood, right?
People have been declaring the death of Hollywood for years, and it has nothing to do with Hollywood. It has everything to do with creativity. You don't need money to make a great movie. You need a great idea, and you need somebody who knows how to execute that idea. And you can do that with your iPhone. If you're ingenious enough, if you're clever enough, if you're passionate enough. And if you do something clever on your iPhone and share it with people, they're going to share it with more people, and it's going to go viral, and people are going to get to see what you've created.
Does it feel to you like we are, since you started in the late 60s, that we're seeing a little bit of that new Hollywood moment again with the industry in transition?
I can't believe there aren't people who are kind of looking over their shoulder saying, these kids are coming up with, all sorts of stuff on no budget and producing really good stuff. It does not take an army, and it does not take a fortune. As I say, it takes just good ideas.